Good
afternoon, dear friends from the press. Welcome to the press conference. You can raise your questions now.
谢谢发言人。新华社记者提问：近日，美方是以中国进口俄罗斯石油。
Xinhua News Agency recently, the U.S. calls on the G7 and NATO to impose more tariffs on China over Russian oil purchase, to urge China to play a role in ending the Russia-Ukraine conflict, was China's comment. It's legitimate, lawful, and beyond reproach for China to have normal economic and trade and energy cooperation between countries around the world, including Russia. The U.S. moves are typical unilateral bullying and economic coercion, which gravely undermines international economic and trade rules and threatens global industrial and supply chains security and stability. Facts prove that coercion and pressuring finds no support among people, nor can it solve any problem. China's position on the Ukraine crisis is consistent and very clear. Dialogue and negotiation is the only viable way out of the Ukraine crisis. Since day one of the crisis, China has been upholding an objective and just position and promoting talks for peace. China firmly opposes relevant sides, directing the issue to China, and slapping unlawful unilateral sanctions and alarm jurisdiction on China. If our legitimate rights and interests are hurt, China will take resolute countermeasures and firmly defend its sovereignty, security, and development interests. Next one, please.
谢谢发言人。中华卫视记者提问。
China Arab TV, Pakistani President Jawdari on Sunday pledged to enhance defense production cooperation with China. It was because that the attack in Dhaka exposed the problems of U.S. security commitment, and will more countries consider enhancing cooperation with China in defense production and security as an alternative from the U.S.?
China advocates the vision of common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security. We stand ready to work with all parties to jointly implement the Global Security Initiative, strengthen international security cooperation, uphold the purposes and principles of the UN Charter, safeguard the international based on international law, and build a world of peace, development, and universal security. Next one, please.
谢谢发言人。总台华语环球节目中心记者提问：我们注意到中国台湾地区陆委会主委。
We noticed that Zhou Chuizheng, head of the Mainland Affairs Council of China's Taiwan region, when visiting the U.S. recently, met with both Democratic and Republican members of the U.S. Congress and delivered a speech at the U.S. think tank at the Heritage Foundation. Zhou said mainland China has become the greatest threat to the peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait, and if there are actions to be taken by force, it will threaten the security and prosperity of the United States. What's your comment? There is but one China in the world, and Taiwan is an inalienable part of China's territory. This is the true status quo regarding the Taiwan Strait. The greatest threat to peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait comes from the separatist activities of Taiwan independent forces and external connivance and support they receive. China firmly opposes any form of U.S.-Taiwan official interactions and military contacts, and firmly safeguards our nation's sovereignty and territorial integrity. We urge the U.S. to earnestly abide by the One China principle and the three China-U.S. joint communiques and stop sending wrong signal to Taiwan independence separatist forces. No matter how the TVB authorities peddle the mainland threat narrative, hype up tensions across the Taiwan Straits, and squander the taxpayers' money in exchange for external support for their independence agenda, they cannot change the fact that both sides of the strait belongs to one and the same China, still less they can stop the inevitability of China's unification. Our message to Chiu Chui-zheng and his kind to hustle national interests for Taiwan independence brings only shame and contempt. Such attempts are doomed to fail. Next question, please.
My question from AFP.
法新社有媒体报道称，习近平主席已经邀请了特朗普来访华，在今年内访华，但是美方还没有回应，主要是因为中美之间在芬太尼以及经贸方面有不同的意见。中方是否能够证实，在马德里的经贸谈判将会继续？China and the U.S. has unimpeded communication channels. On the specifics that you mentioned, I have nothing to share on that. Next one, please.
谢谢发言人。中新社记者提问：据报道，日前美国务卿卢比奥发。
According to recent statements, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that the U.S. stands with a Philippine ally in rejecting China's destabilizing plans to establish a national nature reserve at Scarborough Reef. Beijing claimed Scarborough Reef as a nature preserve is another coercive attempt to advance territorial and maritime claims in the South China Sea at the expense of its neighbors. He called on China to abide by the 2016 Arbitral Tribunal's decision, was China's comment. China has made its position clear on that issue and made a serious protest to the U.S. today over the wrongful remarks. Huaiyandao has always been China's territory. It is China's sovereign right to create a national nature reserve for the island, which is legitimate, lawful, and beyond reproach. With the joint efforts of China and the ASEAN countries, the South China Sea has been generally stable. The U.S. is not a party to the South China Sea issue, but has repeatedly made irresponsible remarks, caused problems, and meddled in the maritime issues between countries concerned. The U.S. has also brought in individual countries to sow discord and fear and disrupt the South China Sea, which has otherwise been tranquil all along. The arbitration that you just mentioned is nothing but a political farce orchestrated by the U.S., orchestrated as a political process. The so-called decision is illegal, null and void, which is not binding. China does not accept or recognize it. Who's committed to defending the international rule of law and the peace and stable South China Sea, and who's been a disruptor and troublemaker? The answer is quite clear. The U.S. should keep its hands off the South China Sea and the hands that have been the source of disinformation, tension, and confrontation, and give the South China Sea its tranquility back. China will continue to work with ASEAN countries to fully and effectively implement the Declaration of the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea, and actively move forward with consultation on the Code of Conduct, and jointly build the South China Sea into a sea of peace, friendship, and cooperation. Next question, please.
Hello, thank you, spokesperson. A question from Roy.
路透社，美国民主党要求特朗普政府敦促中方减少产能过剩，称任何中美之间的双边贸易协定都应该有相关的约束性要求。这是众议院中国特设委的一封信中所透露的内容，中方对此有何回应？
We have issued for multiple times, hyping up the so-called overcapacity is not consistent with the objective truth and economic principles and provides excuses for protectionism. Its true intention is to coerce China's high-quality development, to which China firmly opposes. Next question, please.
谢发言人。总裁央视记者提问：我们看到，据韩国媒体报道，韩国外长
According to state media, the foreign minister of ROK will visit China this week. Can you confirm that? At the invitation of the member of the political bureau of the CPC Central Committee and Foreign Minister Wang Yi, ROK Foreign Minister Cho Hon will visit China on September 17th. Next question, please.
谢谢发言人。澎湃新闻提问：我们注意到2025年网络安全宣传周开。
The paper, we noted that the opening ceremony of the 2025 Cybersecurity Week was held in Kunming this morning. What does China hope to achieve through the week, and what's China's stance on dealing with cybersecurity? The nationwide event of Cybersecurity Week held annually in China aims to raise public awareness on cybersecurity, help our internet users to become more capable of ensuring online security, fostering a positive and healthy environment in cyberspace, and promote global cybersecurity governance and cooperation. Cybersecurity threats are the common challenge faced by all countries, and upholding cybersecurity is the shared responsibility of the international community. China actively advocates a peaceful, safe and secure, open, cooperative, and orderly cyberspace. We're committed to promoting a community with a shared future in cyberspace, and will continue to work with the international community to jointly uphold security in the cyberspace so that the internet can deliver more benefits to people from all countries. Next one, please.
On the U.S.-China trade.
关于马德里的经贸谈判，中方是否在考虑要求字节跳动来放弃自己的 TikTok 业务？如果周三没有最终的解决方案的话，中方将如何做决定 ？On TikTok issues, China has stated its position on that on multiple occasions.
下一个问题。
Next one, please.
发言人你好，环球时报环球网记者提问：据报道，今年8月以来，美国以
Since August, the U.S. has deployed military forces near the Caribbean side of Venezuela under the pretext of counter-narcotics. And recently, Venezuela said that the U.S. has illegally boarded and held one Venezuela vessel, was the comment. Recently, under the pretext of counter-narcotics, the U.S. deployed military forces near the Venezuela side and said that it sunken relevant ships and held the fishing vessels from the Venezuelan side, which caused the tensions in the regional situation. The relative actions of the U.S. seriously undermines peace and security of the region, seriously infringe upon the security, sovereignty, and legitimate rights and interests of other countries, seriously violates international law. China has always upheld to enhance international cooperation to crack down on transborder crimes. We oppose unilateral use of forces. We oppose any foreign forces to interfere Venezuela's internal affairs under any pretext. We urge the U.S. not to sabotage the navigation, security, and freedom interests by the Venezuelan side according to international law, so as to destabilize the peace and stability in the region. Next question, please.
Thank you, spokesperson. Another question from Reuters.
路透社，美国在台协会发布声明表示，中方故意曲解二战时期的文件，包括开罗宣言、波茨坦公告，还有旧金山条约，称大陆的叙述是虚假的，并且这些文件并没有决定台湾的最终政治地位。中方对此有何评论？
美方
Relevant agencies disrupts black and white. China expresses serious discontent to that and firmly opposes it. Taiwan's return to China is an victories achievements of the Second World War and an important part of the post-war world order. Potsdam Declaration and Cairo Declaration, as well as other internationally binding documents, clearly identifies China's sovereignty over Taiwan. The status of Taiwan has been fully settled after the victory of Chinese People's War of Resistance against Japanese aggression. The so-called San Francisco Pact is an illegal, null and void document made by the U.S. with Japan under the exclusion of the People's Republic of China and Soviet Union. What I want to stress is that there's only one China in the world. Taiwan is an inalienable part of Chinese territory. This is indisputable historical and legislative facts. Anyone, any forces cannot change that. We urge the United States to abide by the One China principle in 3 China-U.S. joint communiques, stop conniving at or supporting Taiwan independence separatist forces in any form. Next question, please.
北京日报提问。就在昨天，中国国际服务贸易交易会。
The China International Fair for Trade and Services concluded in Beijing yesterday. Foreign media commented that over the past 13 years since its launch, CIFTIS has realized extraordinary transformation as China's trade and services continue to grow. This year, CIFTIS not only offers a window displaying global trade and services, but also highlights China's dynamism in opening up and innovation influence in the global economic landscape, demonstrating China's firm commitment to high standard opening up. What's your comment? The CIFTIS, which was launched 13 years ago, is an important platform provided by China for wider opening up, deeper cooperation, and greater innovation. This year, CIFTIS attracted close to 2,000 companies to exhibit on site, over 20% of which are international companies, covering 26 countries and regions that are among the top 30 in terms of services trade, and displayed 198 new products and outcomes. As scientific and technological development and industrial transformation in the world accelerates, the annual CIFTIS effectively meets the urgent needs of countries for developing high-quality services trade. Recently, we also successfully held the World Smart Industry Expo 2025, the 25th China International Fair for Investment and Trade, and other expos and fairs, sending a clear message of China enhancing innovation cooperation and jointly responding to challenges with other countries. China will, as always, act as a promoter of economic globalization, a defender of the multilateral trading system, and a contributor to stable and unimpeded industrial and supply chains. Share the long-term benefits of greater institutional opening up with other countries, and provide stability and new impetus for the world economy. Next question, please.
Thank you, spokesperson. A question.
我想问一个关于美国财长贝森特的表态的问题。几个小时之前，他有一个表态说，在马德里中美之间的经贸谈判过程中，中方找到美方，并且提出了一个很强硬的要求，美方会伤害到美方的国家安全，这是什么样子的要求？另外，在 TikTok 问题上，中美之间有可能会解决该问题，中方能否确认？
关于中美双方在
On the Madrid talks between China and the U.S., I have nothing to share with you at the moment. Please check back for updates. And on TikTok, China has stated its position on multiple occasions.
下一个问题。
Next one, please.
Thank you, spokesperson. You confirm News Agent.
路透社，美国总统乌克兰问题特使在上周六的时候参加一个基辅的安全论坛，表示，如果中方停止对于俄罗斯的经济支持，将很快结束俄乌冲突。外交部对此有何评论
在
On the issue of the Ukraine crisis, China, as always, upholds an objective and just position and actively works for peace talks. Most countries, including the US and those in Europe, conduct trade with Russia. The normal exchanges and cooperation between Chinese and Russian companies are in line with WTO rules and market principles. They don't target any third party and should not be interfered or affected. Next question, please.
谢谢发言人。本地青年报记者提问：上周中方再次成功举办
Beijing Youth Daily China held another successful China-Africa Youth Festival last week, which is the 9th consecutive edition. Can you give us more details? The China-Africa Youth Festival is a flagship project for youth exchanges under the framework of FOCAC. With the joint support from both sides and especially active participation of youngsters, we've staged 9 successful editions in total. This year's events were held in Beijing and Qinghai from September the 8th to the 13th. 59 young representatives from African member countries of FOCAC made field trips and extended events to gain first-hand experience of the achievements in China's modernization drive and an ecologically friendly and culturally rich China where all ethnic groups coexist in harmony and people live a better life. The experience has helped them more committed to China and Africa jointly pursuing modernization. Cultural and people-to-people exchange is an important part of China-Africa cooperation. Such exchanges are conducive to deepening mutual understanding and carrying forward traditional friendship. Through this festival, China stands ready to further consolidate solidarity and friendship and inject more new impetus to the effort of building an all-weather China-Africa community with a shared future for the new era. Next one, please.
From AFP, Mexico's
法新社新报墨西哥的总统对于中方的表态有所回应，并称他们的关税措施并不是在胁迫之下所采取的，中方对此有何评论？
中方始终
China always advocates universally beneficial and inclusive economic globalization, opposes unilateralism, protectionism, and discriminatory measures in any form, firmly opposes coercive actions in limiting China's development and undermining China's legitimate rights and interests. China will uphold and defend its rights and interests. China and Mexico are important Global South countries. Mutually beneficial cooperation are the essential feature of China-Mexico economic and trade cooperation. China highly values the development of China-Mexico relations. We hope that Mexico would work with China to jointly uphold a sound international trade and economic environment. Next question, please.
还有其他问题吗？
Any more questions?
好，那今天的
That will be the end of today's press conference. Thank you.